Brooke, how are you?
I'm wide awake. How can you not be excited with the draft starting in 84 hours and 28 minutes, according to the countdown?
Well, you're lying. You also have to go get dental work done in 90 minutes. That's why you're wide awake, not the draft.
Look, dental work, the draft.
What's more fun?
Tom and Venn diagram there.
Yeah, there's a joke to be made somewhere in there. I'm not sure what. Hopefully it's nothing major. Hopefully you're just getting a cleaning or something. I just had a whole bunch of work done. It was not fun.
Oh, yeah. Thankfully, just a cleaning. I already did the root canal stuff during the season. So fingers crossed, this one's an easy one.
Good. I had that as well. Not fun. All right, so let's talk draft, though. Very basic, most simple question I can ask. What position do you think that they address in the first round on Thursday night?
It's such a simple question and yet such a complex answer because it depends on, honestly, what the Saints do at 9. If the Saints pass on Shedeur Sanders, I think the Steelers address quarterback in round 1. Is that what I thought would happen a month and a half ago? Absolutely not. But the closer we get to the draft, the more likely it feels like that they're going to go with the quarterback in round 1, and it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders is not on the board, then maybe a defensive line. To me, that's the second option, but defensive line and running back is a much deeper class than quarterback, and if they have a chance to get a guy that they have a first-round grade on, then I think they have to take that opportunity with 21.
Wow, Shedeur Sanders, huh? So what do they like about Shedeur?
I mean, if you're Mike Tomlin, what's not to like when, we know his track record of how he drafts players and evaluates players. And one of the big things with him is a football pedigree. Yeah. Shedeur Sanders obviously has that in spades. I also think, to me, the other big thing that he has that Mike Tomlin likes and that the Pittsburgh Steelers like is he has a big personality and he has strong leadership skills. And when I look at what is missing on the offensive side of the ball, they lack an identity. They lack a cohesive personality. They don't have a guy to rally around, maybe the way that the defense has had for years. And it's not just a guy, it's multiple guys. The defense has an identity. They have a leadership core. The offense has kind of lacked that person. That was one of the reasons they brought in Russell Wilson, thinking that he could be that leader, that guy that could rally everyone and get behind him. Obviously, that doesn't work out in the long term. Now they have an opportunity to do that with a guy like Shedeur Sanders. To me, it makes a lot of sense. The football skills of it, obviously, very important. I think that he's the most pro-ready quarterback, but he still has a lot of growing and learning to do. I am nervous if I'm the Steelers about the number of sacks he's taken, his tendency to drift back under pressure. That, to me, is shades of Kenny Pickett, and that makes me a little nervous. But I think that he does have arm strength, which I know that there's been some debate on exactly how strong his arm is. His accuracy was pretty good last year, but I know he also had a lot of throws at or behind the line of scrimmage, which, let's be honest, that does fit in an Arthur Smith offense, even though you did just go out and acquire a vertical threat in DK Metcalf.
Wow. Okay. I don't disagree with any of it. I think it's going to be fascinating if that works out. What do you think, Brooke, if they do take Sanders? Does Mike Tomlin entrust him to play right away? I mean, obviously he'll have to earn that, and I'm sure they'll start out with some sort of competition. But if Sanders plays well enough, do you think Tomlin gives him a chance to play from week 1 or early on in his career?
I hope that they will have learned from the Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett situation and handle this situation a lot better, because it's a very similar kind of spot, although Mason Rudolph is much more familiar with this organization. And yes, he came in and signed to be there, to be kind of maybe the backup, maybe the starter. Is not quite the same situation as Mitch Trubisky when he came in and was essentially told, hey, man, you're the starter. And then he gets Kenny Pickett drafted and kind of waiting in the wings from day one. I would think that this is a situation where roles are clearly defined in the beginning of, hey, we drafted Shedeur in the first round. We would like him to be our starter week 1. Mason, you are clearly the bridge guy until Shedeur is ready. Instead of this prolonged competition, this, you get the guy that starts like Mitch Trubisky and then was kind of playing, I think, to not lose, to not turn the ball over, playing conservative, which ultimately led to his undoing and Kenny Pickett taking over in week 4 anyway. I think that you need to better prepare a rookie quarterback, get him more first-team reps in training camp, get him working with the first-team skill position players, all of those things that are going to make this transition feeling less haphazard than it did when they went through this just a couple years ago.
Fan Morning Show, chatting with Brooke Pryor from ESPN. You can check her stuff out at ESPN.com, of course, and follow her on Twitter or X at BE Pryor. Brooke, changing gears a little bit from quarterback to wide receiver or running back, I'm fascinated by how they fill out the other offensive skill positions. Who do you think is more likely to come off the board first, a running back or a wide receiver?
Ooh, that's tough, because I think that this running back class is deeper than the wide receiver class, so you can still get good value in later rounds, but it is a more pressing position because of the DK Metcalf trade. They have a little bit of breathing room there, especially if Roman Wilson is healthy, especially if they continue to keep George Pickens on the roster, which at this point kind of seems like it's the case, although they still have a contract and extension negotiation to get through. I think that they have to address running back first, because you can't go into the season with Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren as the running back room. Obviously, they're going to add some UDFAs, maybe some free agents, but I think that you need a guy that is kind of built like a Najee Harris, but gets more yards per carry. That's what this group is missing right now, and I think that there's a lot of value in drafting a guy high, although, again, the last time they took a first-round running back, it didn't necessarily pan out the way they thought it would. So this is a year when I would really wish I had a second-round pick to get a running back out of, but I think that they could also address that position in the third and still get a really quality guy.
Well, one way they could get a second-round pick is by trading George Pickens, although from your reporting, from everybody's reporting, it doesn't seem like that's likely to happen. You also mentioned the idea of working out an extension. So I was going to ask you, which direction do you see this going with Pickens? Do you expect, to hear nothing around the draft, he doesn't get moved, and they work out an extension? Just sort of what's the path forward with George as far as you understand it?
I mean, the closer we get to the draft, the more likely it continues to be that they work out an extension with Pickens, or that's the route that they take. I mean, it was very interesting hearing what Mike Tomlin was saying about Pickens at NFL owners meetings, in that, he doesn't really view DK Metcalf as impacting George Pickens, as impacting his status on the roster, but looking at, teams like the Bengals that have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and some of the other teams in the league that have had a lot of success with two really strong wide receivers, as T. Higgins and Jamar Chase will say 1A, 1B. It's not 1 and 2. And I think that does, on paper, make a lot of sense. And that duo together would give you a passing game that you haven't had in, 5 years almost, if not more. And so I get the sense that it's still continuing to trend toward an extension, but crazier things have happened. We have seen them happen. But at this point, that's where it feels like things are going.
A couple more minutes with Brooke Pryor from ESPN. Brooke, you mentioned this early in our conversation, and I believe it was something you were talking on a recent podcast about, the Steelers' offensive identity. What is it right now, and what do you think the big picture desire is for it to be? I would imagine that probably looks different with Shedeur Sanders or Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers or whomever winds up being the quarterback. But, maybe what's the best offensive identity? How do you see this trending?
Well, it's what they have said and what they're doing lend themselves to two very different identities, because the Steelers have always said they want to be a run-first team, build from the trenches out. But when you look at the state of the running back group right now, I don't know that is exactly what they have, especially when you look at the acquisition of DK Metcalf. That, to me, suggests that you want to have either a balanced offense, best case scenario involving the run game, or you want to have a pass-heavy offense. If they get Aaron Rodgers has not been a quarterback involved in a good run game for a long time in his career. He likes to throw the ball. He threw, I forget how many passes last year, but it was right at the top of the league. So if you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you're essentially saying you know what? I'm okay not being a run-first team. I'm okay not winning in the trenches, which goes against, as we know, everything the Steelers have said that they are all about. And so I really think that this team does not have a defined offensive identity because of the turnover in the offseason, because of the unresolved questions at quarterback. I think that the draft and Aaron Rodgers' decision are going to dictate this offensive identity. They're really at a crossroads. And if it, ends up being Mason Rudolph and they pass on a quarterback, maybe they get a guy in the third round. If they don't get Aaron Rodgers, then I think that identity continues to be a run-first offense, provided that they get a good running back in the draft, and I run first, maybe more balanced with Mason Rudolph, and then Shedeur Sanders. He's not a really mobile necessarily running quarterback the way that a guy like Justin Fields is. I just think that so much is still up in the air, which makes this time fascinating, but also a little bit concerning that it's late April and we don't really know what this offense is going to look like.
Yeah, the season's still for a couple months. Come on, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Brooke Pryor, thanks so much, Brooke. I appreciate it. Good luck at the dentist today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right.